It's a pleasure to have with us today Sean Kane, co-founder of FSS. Sean, take it away, and thanks for being here.
Great. Thank you so much. Thank you, everybody, for being here. Really appreciate it. Really happy to. I'm here to talk, as mentioned, about Give First. And it's kind of exciting. You look at it, and it has give and first in it, so those are two nice words that get us all excited. And all of you have probably heard it. Most of you in this room, I think, have practiced it. That's really useful. I was wondering about that. Cool. So what is Give First? Just very quickly, and a simple definition is giving without expecting anything in return. And this is really what drives the startup ecosystem. It's what's driving our global growth and our impact on the world. But the interesting part for me is the value is great, and most of you have practiced it here again this week. But what's a Give First business model? So a Give First business model has a fanatical focus on delivering value, not revenue and profit, which is something probably very different than what's been discussed in many of the mentor sessions today on stage, what the VCs walking around are saying. And I'm here to say that they're wrong. It drives early traction and validation, and sometimes at a global level, which is super cool. So if you could start your startup, get it going, get your first 100,000 users for free, and then have them tell everything they hate about what you're doing and everything they love about it, and be invested in it, how much is that worth? It's worth a lot, but I can tell you what it costs, which is zero in a Give First model. You scale without friction. That sounds lovely. At zero CAC. So CAC is customer acquisition cost. It's one of the main drivers of just about any business today. It's lovely if you look at your business and you think about it, if you could take all your marketing costs and just erase them. You know, they're gone. And acquire people every day without spending anything. That's pretty awesome. This is pretty exciting too. All those are kind of like, businessy things. But the really exciting part about a Give First business model for me is that it restructures economy and society, which sounds like something out of a university class or a philosophy book. But it's literally what Give First business models are doing as startups in general and founders, and all of you in this room also reshape in society. Let's get that next one back. And the last thing is, all those are nice. They're nice things to do, but we're not talking about money there, at least money that comes into our startups as founders to pay other people and pay the bills. But Give First business models are incredibly efficient at generating capital to reinvest in more value and more growth. They lead you to your native business model, and they help you scale it. Sounds pretty cool, and sounds pretty theoretical as well. So I'm going to dig into a specific Give First startup story. It's the startup story I know most because the last 3 years or more, I've been working with a huge team of co-founders, more about that in a second, to scale FSuccess. Not here to promote FSuccess, it's just an example I know really well, and in my mind, one of the leading proponents of this approach to running a startup. So Give First again, giving without expecting anything in return. FSuccess, giving $2.5 billion to founders and asking them for $0. So it sounds ridiculous. Like, who the hell would do that, right? Why would you do that? How would you do that? So the first thing that we did at FSuccess, and we continue to do, is we quantified our mission's unit of value. So if you have to create value for someone under a Give First business model, what's your core KPI? And at FSuccess, the core KPI is the value in dollars. So it's not good feelings or goodwill or people liking us, although we hope they do all those things. It's the value in dollars of growth resource that's actually delivered to a founder. Because founders are the ones that FSuccess impacts. Founders are our core unit. And if we look at this, from 2013, where we started at about $110 million being delivered to founders, again, think back to one of those first slides, that's not money we're getting, and it's not even our money at the end of the day. I don't have $110 million, let alone $2.4 billion. It's money that we're delivering to founders by creating FSuccess, by the community existing, by the collective efforts of 1.6 million co-founders, which I'll talk about as well. And you can see that's grown nicely. This is sort of your classic startup curve that you like to see, where it gets steeper to the right, and it goes up. And we're actually on track to hit $2.4 billion delivered to founders around the world at FSuccess. It's pretty amazing. It makes us one of the leading global sources of growth capital and growth resource for founders. There we go. Okay. On the quantification side, we talked about traction and validation. So founder value, which again is the value that F-Success is trying to create. We don't spend all day thinking about how we can make more money off people. We spend all day thinking about how we can create more value for founders, deliver them more things that help them grow, drives global growth and product excellence. So in the F-Success case, if you look at this, you might recognize this slide from the one a few slides back. The curve looks really similar. Customer growth and user growth is the same exact curve as value growth. It's not an accident. That's how you get people to come at zero CAC, so zero cost. We've never spent anything in our entire history on marketing, and deliver value to them in a way that changes their world so that they can go on and change the entire world in turn. We see these people not as users, but at the end of the day, the 1.6 million profiles on F-Success are co-founders, which includes you guys as well, so congratulations. It grows by 2,000 plus a day, almost 1,000 startups some days as well. And it's an enormous community where everybody's working like crazy to put more value to founders. And we'll talk about some of those people are. They're not just VCs, they're not just corporates, they're not just governments. It's really the whole world that we're unleashing on this problem. And it's worked globally. So that's another lovely thing about Give First business models, is because there's not a payment barrier. There's not an issue with, this is what you need to do for me. There isn't that friction. I talked about frictionless at the beginning. They can fill the entire world. So if you look at, this is actually a Google Analytics map. If you look at most startups and most companies' Google Analytics, you'll have a bit of the world that's slightly blue, which means there's activity, and the rest of the world will be white, which means they're not active there. So think back to all the startups you've met recently. Most of them will look like that. F-Success early on, because we gave first and we gave globally, and we found something that everybody wanted, every founder wants to grow, is about a third in the US, a third in Europe, 20% in Asia, but spread throughout the world. That's pretty impressive. And it was actually not until last year that we actually even had anybody outside of Europe. This is the impact we were able to make on the world with Give First. We're restructuring economy and society. So a Give First startup changes the world. It's not only a smart economic model, but it's something that's actually exciting. And many of you have probably been in a startup where after year two, you just dread going to work. I've certainly been there. You just don't want to go. I mean, just the word work, it's a job rather than a passion. Globally, there's about $73 billion each year, or at least last year, in global world product. So that's the sum total of everything that's produced everywhere in the world. It's not growing very quickly, which is a problem. Many of you saw the EU's growth numbers recently. The world has a horrible problem that we're solving. We're really the only ones that can solve it, which is that it doesn't grow quick enough and it doesn't create enough resources for the new people that are born every year. Historically, we've played in the SME part of that. I haven't put exact percentages because they vary so much by country, but governments anywhere from 30% to 80% in a place like Iraq, corporates and SMEs as a rough measure. So let's start by talking about corporates. When we talk about restructuring economy and society, historically corporates have not played in the startup space. They've done almost nothing. But at F-Success, because we have a Give First model, we arrive to people like Microsoft, American Airlines, Barclays, Metro, and actually now half of the Fortune 100. When I ran the numbers a few weeks ago, I was like, wow, we're serving half of the Fortune 100. And we gave first. So it's crazy to walk up to a Microsoft and say, hey, I'm going to help you connect with 1.6 million founders around the world, the largest founder community in the world. I'm going to give you the best startup platform that exists. I'm going to do all these things for you, and the price is free. Because I'm going to give first to you, Microsoft. I don't care how much you're worth. I don't care what your market cap is. I'm going to give first. It's an extreme version of it. And they've come on board, and they've helped us get to that 2.4 billion number, which at the end of the day is why we go to work. It's why we work and do this stuff. So corporates haven't been a large part of economy. F-Success gives them a way to engage with startups and give startups growth. Government is another big part of global world product that hasn't been involved in our market. F-Success has brought on Startup India. We do an enormous amount of stuff with the European Union. I haven't done all the numbers, but most of the European Union programs are helped by us. In most cases, we do it for free. Who works for the European Union for free? Almost no one. F-Success does. We stay up nights, we work weekends. If they pay us, great. If they don't pay us, great. We want to get their resource to founders, and we want to help them. In the same way we help the Inter-American Development Bank, the United States of America, Startup India, and governments all over the world. This is a fundamental restructuring of the economy as government tries to figure out how to get their economy and their society to grow and be more dynamic in the same way that corporates are trying to figure out how to innovate. Startups are the solution. So all that's nice, and it sounds lovely, and it sounds like a really interesting thing to be doing every day. But how do you get the cash out of it, right? How do you get the cash out of a give first model so you can not only invest in your business, but create something of value for yourself? So the first thing that's super important is when you give first at scale, some people will give back. There's this great story from the beginning of F-Success just a few years ago when the first corporate that came on F-Success reached out to them, said, hey, I want to help you. And there weren't a lot of corporates that were interested in startups at that point. And they asked, what's the price? And I said, free. And the entire team worked for 3 or 4 days to add some features, again, free features, help make your product excellent. And at the end of it, they said, great, that's lovely, and they switched their entire startup program onto F-Success, and we helped them reach, I think, 20,000 startups, which they never could have reached otherwise. And I got a call from them 3 weeks later where they said, Sean, I have to pay you. And I said, no, I don't want your money, right? Give me advice, support the economy, give what you were going to give me to the founders. That's where I wanted to go, that's why I do this. And they insisted on paying us. In fact, they sent us an unsolicited check for a very large amount and said, we really have to pay you. Later on, we found out they had to pay us because their legal department was demanding that they do it. But there was certainly some nice stuff going on there as well. I'm going to speed up a little bit just because we're running short on time. The second thing is monetization in a give-first business model is fundamentally different and much easier than any other business model in the world. The reason why is you can build a very simple value matrix. So if we take a 2x2 box, which everybody at F-Success knows this box, if you take a 2x2 box, and one axis is the value to founders. So advertising, really low value to founders. Who wants to look at advertising? I don't. Cash in your pocket, really high value to founders, especially if it's free and it doesn't come with strings. On the other side, revenue to F-Success, because F-Success does need to pay bills just like your startups do and the startups you invest in do. That goes from nothing to a maximum. F-Success always works to be in the upper right-hand corner of the upper right-hand box. So we do few things, and along the way it's been very easy to find our native business model because we can discard things very quickly and stop conversations with people that have low value to founders and low revenue. We've had people come to us and offer us a lot of money for things that we would never do to founders because we exist for them, and we turn those down too. We currently deliver that $2.4 billion because we focused, and it's really easy to understand what to do and how to make these decisions. There we go. A small percentage of a large number is a really large number. So when you behave as give first, and a lot of people want to take from you, feels good, as I mentioned before, but when you have 1.6 million of something, and when you have 90% plus market penetration, and you can look around your market, it's very simple to say, okay, I'm going to monetize a very small part of this, and it's going to be enough for me right now so I can focus on continuing to build value within my give first business model. So currently, just as an example from F-Success, we currently monetize 0.00006%. So it's a really small number of the users of F-Success, and that pays for 70 people who are quite well paid, a global team around the world, and all of our operations. So this is something you can do. Other examples, obviously, are Facebook and other people that monetize lightly, but they've figured out how to give enough that monetizing at these lower levels is viable. Oh, sorry, guys. A little sticky. Great, let's just skip that other slide. So I'm going to finish up here. I'm Sean Kane. I'm one of 1.6 million co-founders at F-Success. If you want to find me and follow me, I'm at fsuccess.com/Sean. Encourage you all to connect with me. And I'm looking for co-founders every day. That's all. Thank you very much. I'm here for, do we have a few minutes for questions, or are we running behind? Great. Are there any questions, guys? Right over there in back.
Hi, I'm Narcis, and I'm a previous startup co-founder.
Great.
How did you come up with the idea of F6S? How did it hit you?
Yeah, it's a really good question. A few years ago, I'd just exited a startup that I think was my 6th or 7th exit in 20 years. And I kind of felt like I was going through the cycle of doing the same thing. And I'd also experienced how shitty it was to be a founder. It's much better to be a founder in Europe now, but how hard it was to be a founder in Europe and how much of a struggle it was, given that the ecosystem is still struggling in a lot of ways, but we're all struggling to lift ourselves up. So I got involved with an accelerator program called Springboard, which is an amazing thing, and I love accelerators, but it frustrated me, and this speaks to who I am. I think accelerators are awesome. But it frustrated me because its impact was on 10 teams, maybe 2 times a year at the most. Great thing, but everything I've ever done has always been in the tens of millions. So I thought through it, and I thought, well, it's interesting that accelerators, as awesome as they are the most scalable thing in this market for delivering growth to founders. How do we deliver growth to 1 million founders, right, instead of just 10 or 20? How do we deliver growth to 10 million founders? How do we do it globally without having to get 70 of the smartest people in the world, mentors, in a room, day after day to deliver this value? So F6S really came out of a frustration and a drive to scale founder growth on a global basis through a platform in a way that it really wasn't being scaled before. Does that make sense? Great. Are there any other questions? Over there in back, please.
Thank you. So I was just wondering, since you mentioned you relied on a small percentage of users paying for what you're doing, was that limiting along the way? Did you feel that as a hindering to your growth as a company?
The quick answer is no. It's a really good question. The quick answer is when you focus on value, getting back to sort of the first point, instead of maximizing and having your core value and your core activity, getting revenue or even profit one of these days, right, out of your users, if you focus on delivering value to them, it's much, much, much more powerful than doing it the other way around, in my opinion. So while you might have less money to spend on different things, or your offices might not be as nice, you might have to work a bit harder or delay some resources, I'm a strong believer that controlling the amount of resource and limiting the amount of resource in a startup in the early days really helps you focus on what you should be doing and not do stupid things that you shouldn't be doing. It takes a little bit longer, clearly, but I'd kind of liken it to an MVP, if you will, right? With an MVP, your problem isn't adding more or spending more. Your problem is actually stripping stuff out so you can get a clearer signal of exactly what's happening and exactly what you should be doing. And not sort of flooding your startup with money at the beginning is actually a hugely positive way to do it, in my opinion. There does hit the point where revenue and so on becomes an issue, but once you've discovered your native business model, and in Give First startups, talked about the matrix there, it's particularly easy to do so, right? You just have to sort of follow the rules. It comes along, and you grow at the rate that you deliver value. They're aligned. Is that the answer to your question?
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Yeah. Thank you.
Okay, thanks. Any other questions? In back there? I can't see you. Got light in my eyes.
I was wondering if you could name a few companies that also give first. And it seems like this way of doing business works especially for communities. Am I right in thinking that, or or can it apply to different types of companies? Like, I don't know.
Yeah.
From communities.
So it's a really good question, and it's always the question whenever you have an expert or someone who claims to be an expert like me up here saying, you know, I have the secret, I have the way to do this, which is okay, that might work for what you do or what you know how to do or like to do, but how generalizable is this? I really like the question because you also brought up community and social and saying, hey, for community and social, is it easiest because, hey, everybody else is doing the work, right? You don't have to do it yourself. And the answer to that is, in my opinion, is there clearly are types of business and business models where Give First is more applicable and more possible than in others. When you have social involved, when you have viral involved, when you're doing a SaaS startup where every incremental user on the platform has a very, very low cost to add, it's an easier model to apply. However, I think it can apply to any business at the end of the day. There's always a give first element that you can use to change the way a business operates. There are a lot of businesses that recently have come up that have given first. Zenefits, which is out of favor right now, I know, and they had the issues that are well known, but they built a huge platform that they gave away for free. And then, for those of you who don't know, Zenefits is a large startup that built a human resources platform and then monetized a percentage of the users by giving away the platform to give first to people and attract users. And they sold a percentage of them insurance and made money by selling the health insurance for their employees. Roughly. There's more to it than that. But that's a business that gave first on a massive scale and built a huge business out of it. There are a lot more of them. And I'm convinced that whether you're selling tractors or you're going out there to do whatever you're doing, using the give first principles and applying them to your business are something that, one, it's a hell of a lot more fun. I enjoy working and going to have success and leading the team a lot more than other things that I could be doing, right? I love founders, but it's objectively a good thing to change the world this way. But it brings that feeling to what you're doing and that focus on your values, but at the same time, it does lovely things like reduce your marketing costs to zero. Incredible, right? It does, and I've helped a lot of startups in a lot of businesses that are not communities reduce their marketing costs to zero using these principles. It gets you closer to your users. Because if you can lower the price of something you do for your users, customers, co-founders, whatever you want to call them, to zero, they're going to give you much better feedback and they're going to invest in you in a way they never would have done if there's a monthly charge hitting their credit card or their bank account every month. So in short, yes, probably more applicable to certain parts of businesses, but I think it can be applied to any business in part.
Wonderful. Thank you, Sean.